This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the Rodrigo Fernandez of website builders. Trust me when I tell you, everyone, Chile are your second favourite team. It's possible you haven't seen them play yet, or you know nothing about them other than that glorious solo try their fly half scored a few weeks ago, but the moment you watch this bunch for more than 5 minutes, Chile will be your second favourite team. How would I describe Los Condores? Well, I'm glad you asked. Imagine the heart and soul, you can cross our try line, but you'll have to kill us all first attitude of Uruguay, the kind of blood and guts of it, matched with the absolute desperation to play with pace and flair of Fiji, and you're kind of halfway there. But don't worry, you'll have plenty of time to get familiar because last weekend they pulled off one of the most impossible results in the history of international rugby as they followed up the unbelievable defeats of Canada last August and Russia last November with one of the greatest comebacks the sport has ever seen. That's not even an exaggeration. This was the 7th biggest comeback the international game's ever seen in its 140-year history to defeat World Rugby's lovely baby, the USA, and qualify for the 2023 Rugby World Cup. Let's put this in context a little, right? 18 months ago, Chile were pretty much anonymous. One face in a crowd of test teams who dip in and out of qualifying without causing a stir at all. They'd never reached the final round of qualifying before, never mind the World Cup itself. The USA, on the other hand, had only ever failed to qualify once, and are pretty used to just breathing through teams like Chile. In fact, the last time the two teams played was in 2019, and Chile lost 71-8. Not only had Chile never beaten the USA, the closest margin between the two was 32 points. What Chile did last Saturday wasn't just an upset, it was an all-time work of rugby heroics. In fact, I'd go as far as saying what their coach, Pablo Lemoine, has achieved in his last 4 years with Chile sits alongside Razzie Erasmus turning the worst Springbok team ever into World Cup winners and Eddie Jones masterminding the Brighton Miracle as one of the top 3 greatest feats ever achieved in the coaching of international rugby. So, how did they pull it off? And also, right, what do the Eagles have to work on before their final shot qualifying later this year? Chile's win becomes only more remarkable the further you break it down. This was not only a win over 2 legs against a team who are heavy favourites, but a nation with 17 times the population, 24 times the estimated player pool, and perhaps most importantly, a top 14 winning loosehead, one of the best fly-halves in the Premiership, a sublime scrum-half who trots out the Saracens, and 7 further starters who have played top-flight rugby overseas, to 0 of any of those things from Chile. This was the kind of experience that usually counts in these contests. Players like Adrian McGinty are normally the ones who decide it. Yet Chile had something different on their side. Cohesion. This season, the club side Selknam, based in Chile's capital Santiago, went on a remarkable run. Ever since dropping down from Super Rugby, SLAR, the South American equivalent of the Heineken Cup, has been dominated by Los Aguares. Not only have they never lost a game, their opponent only came within 10 points of them once. Seeing them post 70-point scores was a pretty regular occurrence. And then, out of nowhere, earlier this season, Selknam beat them 20 points to 10. Maybe the biggest upset the club game saw this season. And then, come the end of season semi-finals, Selknam did it again. They had their number. 7 of the 8 forwards who started that semi-final also started the second playoff against the USA, with Ignacio Silva, the only starter in Colorado who wasn't in the 15 that day, having come off the bench at half-time then instead. And likewise, 6 of the 7 backs are also at Selknam, meaning this Chile team plays together and works together week in, week out. And anyone who watched their kind of delightful scrap with Scotland probably saw this. The trust, the cohesion, the camaraderie, the work rate Chile have on their own try line is frankly unbelievable. Whilst they were caught out by flashy moves further out, on their own line, this is a team with the absolute highest levels of togetherness and fortitude imaginable. Meanwhile, on the same day Chile were playing Scotland together, preparing for this very game, with the same unit of players that have been together for several years now, the Eagles were all split up, spread across the country, for that was also the day of the MLR final. Not only did this mean they had more than a month less to prepare, but the USA starting 15 was pulled from 11 different clubs to Chile's 3. And, as such, I think it's probably fair to say the USA had a kind of all-star invitational team feel, instead of the group of guys who know each other and know the man next to them how they play inside out, that Chile had. The USA relying not on team plays, but individual attributes of their standout players, the carrying power of Joe Tafete, the kicking of Ruben de Haas, the all-round exceptional play of Adrian McGinty, for example. And that is the phrase, exceptional play. McGinty is a man with many strings to his bow, and most recently, he added another one in web design when he headed to Squarespace. Having written this exceptional play and cast all of his teammates in it, McGinty now realised he needed a place to showcase it online and promote it and sell tickets for his great artistic endeavour. And Squarespace gave him the easiest means out there to make a lovely, beautiful website so simply. It just looks gorgeous, and he can offer ticket sales seamlessly. He can integrate clips. He can dedicate pages to how they built the sets out of scrum machines. And if you too happen to be a fly half working on a stage production, or literally anyone who might ever want a website, you can click the link in the description and head to the website there, start making a website, and you can use the offer code SquidRugby to save yourself some money. It's just very easy, it's very simple, it's very exciting. And McGinty's status as a Renaissance man was clearly something Chile were incredibly aware of. And if we look at the equals first attack of the game, his reputation matters. As McGinty lingers in the boot just behind play, keep an eye on Matthias Garafulic here. His eyes are always on McGinty, knowing he's the danger man who's looking to shut him down as soon as he gets the ball. Aware of this, McGinty doesn't call the ball to himself, wanting to bide his time. But Chile defending pretty well here, numbered up, stopping them on or behind the gain line until this. The first big carry the USA get, McGinty pulls the trigger. And spotting this, Garafulic shoots up. Now, Matthias Garafulic is a superb young player who made a hell of an impression on the 12 jersey for Chile last year, and one of the most impressive aspects of his game is the sheer line speed and acceleration he brings to a defence. But with regular outside centre Domingo Saavedra injured, Garafulic was forced to shuffle into the 13 shirt for the first time in his 27 games of professional rugby. And this is kind of a 12's defensive read here, shooting up to apply pressure, expecting the man outside him to then shut it down fully. However, he doesn't have a 13 with him. Instead, it's his brother on the wing, and they're on completely different wavelengths, and it's easy for McGinty and then Campbell to isolate each of them, both going for very different ideas. This pitch is a quagmire only the most sadistic of PE teachers would usually allow anyone to play on, and it means Garafulic then loses his footing briefly and can't recover, meaning the USA can slickly put Christian Dyer over to score in the corner. So, noticing this, Lemoine swapped Pablo Casas, a player far more experienced and used to playing countless positions over a longer career, into the 12 shirt, and had him defend at 13 but attack at 12, meaning Garafulic could play to his strengths in the second test instead of trying to learn a new position on the fly in the biggest game of his life so far. But this wasn't the only change that Lemoine made in the week in between. Sometimes things go beyond the trend, right? In 2014, when coaching Uruguay, Pablo Lemoine's side lost the first leg of the qualifier against Russia by 1 point, but then went on to dominate the second leg by playing far flashier, more ambitious, more open rugby. In 2021, his Chile team lost the first leg against Canada by 1 point, but they ripped up the second, playing far more counter-attack heavy, dynamic rugby. And now, in 2022, Chile finished the first test 1 point behind, only for a far more high-scoring second test, with far more open attacking rugby to see them home. He played a similar set of cards also when coaching Germany, but frankly, no matter how well you prepare for a huge improvement in the second test, it's hard to overturn a 50-point loss on the first leg. So, what did Chile change in the return week? It's very easy to say, let's play a more attacking game this week. But the minutiae, combined with the ability to say this in Spanish, is why Lemoine is a phenomenal coach and we're just punters watching this on YouTube. Because whilst most might think playing a more expansive game means kicking less, in real terms that can be effective in a test match, it instead means kicking differently. Playing a tight game in the first test showed Lemoine how the USA were going to play defensively, including, most importantly almost, how they were going to set their backfield, and consistency in those tactics was good as confirmed by Gary Gold when he named an unchanged starting 15 for the second test. In Game 1, Chile kicked for territory, looking to pump it long, low, hoping to trap the USA in kicking duels such as this one that eats off the final 90 seconds of a simping period that the USA really trying to make the most of. But in Test 2, Chile kicked shallower but higher, largely to contest off outfield players, but off 9 to pressure the USA. This is right at the start of the game. Chile set up to smash Bracky as he takes the ball, and the forwards have already set ready for the next phase. Similar tactics to what Leicester displayed in the Premiership this season, where they focus on the phase after the kick being contestable, in order to kind of really target them there. And they smash the USA backwards. They set up to kick, but they don't have a proper chase set up. Players are in front of McGinty, and Fernandez would have prime counter-attacking opportunity if he didn't kind of fumble it backwards in disbelief of the space in front of him. While this kick by my fellow Torrealba is pretty unorthodox. Most box kicks are hung down the tram lines to limit counter-attack, but instead he pops it in the middle of the pitch, trusting that his own two centres, both captain the wing, will have the pace to shut it down. The USA find themselves then shapeless and concede a penalty, which Rodriguez puts into the corner for Torrealba himself to call America's bluff and throw so many dummies that they figure, surely he's about it. He's got to pass. But no, he stays sharp, darts through, and scores under the post. Or here, at the start of the second half, they hang it high and target McGinty, which they did a few times, wanting him on the floor and out the game to remove his skill set from the USA course. Because those players are crucial to their game plan. As stressed, the Eagles were entering this game with a pair of halfbacks who've been around the block a bit. They've played a lot, right? 218 games of professional rugby between them. And it made that opening game a fascinating, soggy encounter because Chile's tactics were really effective for the match in front of them, yet being countered by two players' individual excellence and intelligence. Take this moment, for instance. A great dropout by Fernandez pumps it as long as possible, and Chile advanced as a line with just two in the backfield. Santiago Villafea will cover this side, and Rodrigo Fernandez this side. So McGinty hangs it directly in the middle, straight between them, meaning both advance onto it. Fernandez gets there first, but this has all thrown his positioning off, and he gets it ever so slightly wrong and drops it. The USA then crash it up with both players tied into tackle. McGinty himself then steps in at 9, noticing no Chilean has then filled in for them at fullback. Dyer beats Lorenas to the ball, and it's very almost a try that would have sealed the game. So, in order to prevent a repeat of this the next week, Limone shuffled his team. Regular fullback Villafela moves to the wing, and Francisco Uros comes in at fullback, a converted fly half and former 7 specialist. Not only did this give Chile an extra kicking option, but it meant they were never lacking in the backfield. Someone always able to drop back and cut down any space the USA halfbacks might identify, adapting their backfield, so Fernandez essentially plays 15, with a fullback slotting in on the right wing and Villafela on the left. Chile were now kicking in an extremely similar fashion to the USA themselves, and it's led to a certain back and forth element that Chile really welcomed. Because they'd stacked their team with kicking options, they were almost infinitely able to return the USA's own high balls whilst biding their time, knowing their freshly reinforced backfield would force the Eagles to drop players back themselves, open up more space, and also mean nobody would ever need to attack alone. They're just waiting for the moment the USA kick slightly loosely or slightly too far, and indeed, it happens here. De Haas clears off the kickoff, but Fernandez covers it, and knowing he has support, he can have a crack. The rest stay as a line, but De Haas shoots up, so Fernandez isolates him, bumps him off, and then turns on the jet shoes. He belts through the defence, and whilst De Haas scrags him, he remains aware of Villafela's positioning the entire time, and that positioning is outstanding. There's not really an angle that shows it, but he just holds his depth, meaning he can sprint onto any pass Fernandez throws, whether it's accurate or not, and it allows him to hit this at full pace and beat McGinty, and then, my God, what a finish! What a finish! As Dyer makes a tackle, he transfers the ball into his inside arm, knowing the other one risks getting too close to the touchline. He uses Dyer's momentum to flip himself forwards away from the corner flag and over the line. It's unbelievable. Before hopping right back up to nail the touchline conversion himself. If Santiago Villafela's agent's phone is not ringing off the hook all week, every DOR in Europe might just be a hack. This dude is a superb technician, a brilliant finisher, and an absolutely clutch kicker, right? There might be more pressure on this penalty to put Chile in front and therefore possibly have them qualify for the Rugby World Cup than there's been on any kick in rugby since maybe Bernard Foley here in 2015? And this is a significantly more difficult one too. Not to mention on the spot where he missed his only other kick of the game, and yet up he steps, one deep breath, and boom. He walks away as though it were nothing. It's phenomenal, this kit. Absolutely unbelievable. By kicking differently, Chile were able to open the game up. And for all the talk of their fun and flair, there's genuine nous and tactical smarts to this team as well. They've seen them overcome sides who should be enormous overdogs. And there's another example in the selection that was highlighted by Limone himself in a brilliant in-depth interview by Uruguayan journalist Ignacio Chan. Despite the horrendous conditions in the first leg, USA coach Gary Gold was very reluctant to use his bench. Only one of the replacements played more than 10 minutes, whilst Chile had all of their subs on before the USA had even used their first. Gold wanting his best 15 players on the pitch to close out the game if possible. And so, expecting to do this again, Limone stacked the bench. Clement Savadra, maybe their biggest carrier and one of the key stars in the defeat of Canada, channel icon Raimundo Martinez, love that guy, such an enthusiastic and ever-present handful, who was sensational in both the games against Russia, carried brilliantly, scored a try, the whole lot, and then also their entire first-choice front row, including Matthias Dieters, who's so big, I wondered whether the Peruvian boulder that once chased Indiana Jones had qualified on residency were all left in the reserves. They were all left on the bench. Dieters and Saavedra came on at half-time, and the others were drip-fed in at optimal opportunities. The other two front rowers went under immense pressure on their own try line, and Raimundo and nippy scrum half Lucas Carvalho for this attacking set that could have seen them get back in the game, and indeed did. It leads to a try. This injection of energy sees them go through the USA really quite easily, really quite quickly. Chile's biggest carriers and best scrummagers were now up against knackered equivalents who'd all played almost an hour more over the 2 weeks, and still had a long way to go. And it leads to this absolute destruction then at the scrum. The team depleted, the USA had no choice of bidding on the props that Lemoyne figured gold wasn't risking putting on for a reason, and knowing a big shove here could change their lives. Chile's best front row absolutely destroys them. However, there is still hope for the USA. Not only do they have another shot qualifying this November when they play Hong Kong, Kenya and Portugal in a repechage, which should be really exciting. That's a really exciting lineup. Portugal have been fantastic this year. But this is also not a bad team, just a disjointed one. And if they can win in November, I reckon a few months in World Cup camp, being together as a unit and learning to play to the same structures, could be enough to pull them into being a far more competitive team. But this is a Chile team we're going to see an awful lot more of. Despite only really appearing on everyone's radar 1 year ago, they're now headed to the World Cup as could be one of the most popular small sides amongst the diehard. And they can really approach their pool with no fear. England might be a bridge too far, but the rest of their pool is real reason to get excited. Their clash with Argentina will be the Rugby World Cup's first ever all-South American affair. Their debut game against Japan is one of the most mouth-watering matchups of the pool stage and is almost guaranteed to feature at least 68 tries. And Samoa have improved a lot this summer window. They've had a really good July. But if Chile can turn a 71-8 loss into a 29-31 victory in 2.5 years, imagine what they can do in the next 18 months. Now that they know all efforts can be focused on what happens in France. Forget your own nation. If Chile can pull that off, they may just leave the World Cup as everyone's outright first favourite team.